Hello Facebook. Tonight we're talking about competition, bad blood, grudges in the holster field, firearms stuff. I'm doing a few things a little bit different tonight. Hopefully they will turn out well. The video quality will be good. I'm going to be working on a little better audio. I'm going to make myself stay in one place a little more so that the volume doesn't go up and down as much. I'm going to grab myself a seat. And there were a few questions off Instagram from today that I wanted to quickly go over and answer. Hello, Tom Kelly. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I'm actually going to throw my my headphone mic on for part of this to try to get a little better quality audio once I grab my seat. Yeah, that's better. I had to initially find a shorter chair. Yeah, this is too low. 1 second. John Hoffman texted me. Hello, Sam Cummins. John Hoffman texted me as soon as he saw my Instagram post on this, and he asked me if I enjoyed like throwing rocks at wasp nests as a kid. And he was obviously thinking that I'm going to get in kind of deep, talking about bad blood and grudges in the holster field. But I was thinking about it a lot today, and thought it was worth talking about. So we're going to go into it and try to go as deep as we can and get something useful. Phoenix Tactical asked a question about the HDPE molds that I make for Conrad Miller at Strongside. And his basic question was, what advantage do the HDPE molds bring to the game? Why should he consider HDPE split molds? So I have one here, and I'm going to give a few reasons why I think they're a phenomenal value, and they also save important time. Nathan Gallup is here. Hello, Jefferson Brooks. You're welcome. If I don't immediately recognize your name, and many of you I won't recognize your name since I know you by company, if you are a holster company, please post up your company name in the comments so I know who's here, because Facebook, it's a lot of personal names, a lot of personal pages, and it's hard for me to keep track of who is who. Yeah, but all right, Sam says black would be better. Can hardly see the white. Is that better? Probably not a lot better. I'll go back to the white one. I'll hold it up close to the screen, Sam. So this is a Glock 43 mold, and it's built on a regularized CAD model. And here are a few of the key features in no particular order. This is not order of importance. This is just things to know. One of the first ones is, if you've ever used two-piece split molds, is that alignment can be a real challenge. Making sure that the two mold halves are aligned muzzle to muzzle and that they're parallel, that they're not kicked out or towed in. Those things, even small misalignment problems there, might not show up when you're forming, but they can really get you when you go to fold, and the holster just doesn't line up properly. Things get weird because it was a little bit cockeyed, a little bit out of whack when you first pressed it. And once you press it like that, there's no going back. So if you have a machined single-piece mold, these two halves are perfectly aligned. They're parallel, the muzzles line up, and the spacing is not going to change. You don't have to worry about keeping track of, making sure they've stayed in the same place and measuring them and maintaining them. They're just done. Yeah, John, mold creep over time. When you do a really careful layout, you're sure it's good, you start making holsters, and then somewhere through the batch, you're just like, this is not right. And you're trying to figure out when it happened, what exactly changed, and you end up just chasing it. Also, when it comes to drilling holes for vacuum to pass through, and also drilling holes to pin attachments in place. If you're putting blocking on these, you can drill 1/16 of an inch holes and use very small brad nails to pin blocking in place so it can't shift easily. One of the downsides of DIY drones and multi-molds is they're a little bit more brittle. HDPE is a little bit more rubbery. It's dense, it's solid, but it's not going to suddenly crack. So if you have to drill a hole near an edge, you're not going to flake out the mold and then have a big chunk that you got to fill in with epoxy or JB Weld or something. Also, to those of you who are here, thank you for sharing your time with me. Please like the video and share it. And if you know other holster makers who haven't been tagged or haven't been here for one of my live videos before, please consider texting them, tagging them, doing something, letting them know this is going on, invite them to it, get them here. This is going to run for a little over an hour is the plan, so you got time to invite people and it's going to be good stuff tonight. So mold alignment is a big thing that people often overlook. This is also toleranced for fit. These are dimensionally stable and accurate. They're machined, we check them. You're not going to have to add tape to this. You're good to go right off the mold when you take one of these and put it on your former. So those were some of the big ones that I didn't think had really gotten addressed yet. But it's also just, it's really simple and straightforward. Out of the box, all you have to do is pop a couple holes in it for vacuum and a few key spots inside the trigger guard and in the side channel, and you're ready to go. So as far as the amount of time involved to get one of these ready for forming, very, very little compared to many of the other split molds on the market. So that's that. Got my water bottle here. If you have questions, we're going to take a few more minutes before we really get into the meat of the discussion tonight. JR is here. Craig Douglas. Do I have South Narc on my feed? Is that the Craig Douglas? Oh, man. I really hope that is the Craig Douglas of ECQC, VCQB, etc. fame. But if you've been in the holster industry for a while, that's me. Craig, thank you for joining us. I'm glad to have you here. I hope you've been liking the flat pack tourniquet carrier. I'm a big fan of your work, and I think you're coming to Indiana again this fall for ECQC, and I hope to be able to take it this year. Issue with the vacuum holes showing up in the molded piece. Ryan, it depends what size you drill the vacuum holes at. If you drill a hole right in here in the corner where the slide dives down into the side channel area, if you tuck your vacuum hole into that corner, you're never going to see it in the plastic. And you can drill 3/32 seconds. That's what I normally drill. Anytime I can bury the vacuum hole along a contour and put it in a corner. Hello, Charlie Childress. I did get the package of attachments today. Last video, guys, I talked for a while about hardware and attachments, and Charlie from RC Holster Supply hopped on the feed. He asked if I'd checked out his stuff before. I hadn't, so he got with me through Instagram and sent me a little care package. So I have a handful of RC Holster Supply stuff that I will be checking out this week and then getting back to you all on with my opinions on that stuff. I like seeing Made in USA on it, so good job on that. Ryan, any place you have to drill a hole in a very exposed flat area where the plastic can suck down directly onto the hole, I would drill 1/16 of an inch or smaller if you have smaller handy. But wherever possible, I always try to put a vacuum hole at a spot where the contour is changing. So if I need vacuum on the side of the slide, I'll put that hole right where the slide face joins into the frame. At that little contour, tuck the hole in there, and the plastic will barely even show it. I've never had performance or fitment issues because of a vacuum hole, but I have seen holsters that did and holster makers that do because they drill holes too large and in the wrong places. So one thing to remember with molds, you can always add more vacuum holes later. It's a lot harder to take them away. So if you drill a few and then test it out and find you want a few more, you're not getting enough definition in a few spots, add a couple more holes, try it again, and, adjust to taste. So when it comes to grudges and bad blood in the holster industry, sometimes it's a minefield. I do a bunch of work for a bunch of different companies. the vast majority of my holster work is OEM and private label. I make a lot of stuff for other companies that they assemble, that they brand, that they package, and they sell, and my name's not on it publicly anywhere. A few companies like Filster, John Hoffman, have been very public about the work I've done for them. Most of my clients are a little more reserved about publicizing outsourced processes or outsourced molds. Swift Press is already turning out great definition. Ryan, I'm glad to hear it. I designed it to be as simple and straightforward to use as possible, and I'm glad to hear it's working well for you already. If you just recently joined, if you're a holster company, please post up your company name in the comments. Some of you guys, I recognize your name, like Eric Powell is Powell Kydex, but I don't recognize all your names, and it's helpful to me if you are a holster maker, and for anybody else watching, to know who's who in here. Are we able to cut these to create something similar to the trim molds you use? Yeah, certainly. Brandon, there's no reason why you can't take one of these HDPE molds, make a holster shell. You'd need a pair of them, so you'd want to keep one for forming, drill it for vacuum, make a holster shell on it, cut the holster outline as close as you can, basically make a finished shell. You can even fold it and double check and sand, and then reheat the center line, unfold it, lay it over your second mold, mark the outline, bandsaw just outside the line, and then since you need that edge to be nice and square, you will want to true up those edges on a belt sander using the deck as a guide to make sure you have a nice 90-degree side. And yeah, you can easily make an analog, completely non-CNC trim mold. You probably won't get the same level of symmetry and consistency that I'm able to produce with a machined trim mold, but yeah, you certainly can. There's no reason not to. Pants are leg prisons, says John. I agree. Sam Cummins. Nathan, you have a new favorite page to watch, huh? So, when it comes to holster makers, sometimes you'll talk to one holster maker and you'll mention some other holster maker and find out that one or both of them can't stand each other. And there are some holster makers who are disliked by lots of people. There are probably a handful that if you polled 50 holster makers, there are probably, if you asked, who do you dislike the most in the industry among other holster makers, there are probably certain names that will come up over and over and over and over again. And some of that is for understandable reasons, some of it not. Rick Wayne says, TAC Pro. Now, here's one thing I don't want this talk to be about. My goal in discussing grudges and bad blood is not to have comments filled with lots of names of companies that people watching the video don't like. I'm going to do very little talking about specific companies, only a couple exceptions. Because I think generally that there is an outrageous amount of negativity and bad blood in the industry, and that it doesn't actually produce anything worthwhile or helpful. All it does is eat up energy, slow people down, and make the industry less flexible, less adaptive, less able to evolve and move forward. Rick Wayne says, I have no bad blood. Just a joke. Yeah, I thought about having some Taylor Swift on in the background, but I just decided that Sam Cummins would like that too much, so I just couldn't do it. There are a couple reasons when I've talked to holster makers who don't like each other, because I do work for some clients who can't stand each other, and that leaves me sort of as a man in the middle, negotiating that in a way where I'm trying not to make anybody angry, but I also want to do good work for all my customers. There are basically three big reasons that I've run across why one holster maker or another won't like somebody. So the first one is people think that somebody else stole their idea. So intellectual property, patent pending, they ripped off my design, they stole the same name as mine, something like that. The second one is just personalities don't mesh. And that's true in every business. You're going to meet some people you naturally gel with and some people you don't. And that's fine. You don't have to like everybody in the industry. But if you spend time and energy thinking about people that you're angry with, people in the industry that you hate, you know, holster designs you can't stand, and companies that you are just like, I would never do business with that person. You're spending a lot of energy that could be productively worked into something else and spending it on being bitter, often about things that are far enough in the past that really the industry has moved on. So Conrad Miller is here. Conrad, at the beginning of this video, I did a little bit of talking about the HDPE molds in response to Phoenix Tactical's question on your Instagram page today. So hopefully we can eventually get him over to this video and have him check it out. Rick Wayne says, I honestly don't dislike anyone, and I think that's a good place to be. I've tried to not step on people's toes. Partly, that's because a lot of the work I do kind of anonymously. I have definitely had products that have been straight up ripped off by other companies. It happens. But when there's one particular product that I started making a couple of years ago, and as soon as I started making it, I thought, maybe I should patent this. And I'm sure a lot of you have had the thought, maybe I should patent this. And the prevailing wisdom on patents really changes depending on who you're talking to. So on that particular project, I decided not to pursue a patent at all. And the reason was very simple. I want to spend my time making holsters. I want to spend my time running CNC machines. I want to spend my time building new business relationships, designing new products, bringing things to market, working with customers, getting stuff out to the public. And I don't want to spend my time trolling on people's social media, looking for photos from other companies that I can then sick my lawyer on and have him send them a cease and desist. I'm a holster company, not a I sue people company. And so I think one of the basic misunderstandings that I've run into about patents and patent pending stuff, first, patent pending is not granted. If somebody has a patent pending, they may never get that patent. For years, Crossbreed Holsters was one of the guys who was talking a lot about having patent pending. And a couple of years ago, they just sort of quietly took down the patent pending verbiage from their front page of their website. And they'd been talking it up and talking it up and talking it up and talking it up, and then they started not talking about it at all because it didn't pan out the way they wanted. Yeah, strong side's pretty awful. Guy's got a huge head. But if somebody has a patent pending, that's not a guarantee. And this is the flip side, though. If somebody has a patent pending and they get it granted, depending on the situation, they can sometimes go back and get you for stuff you were making and selling while their patent was pending before it was issued. And if they sent you a cease and desist while their patent was still pending, and knowing about their patent, you chose to continue making the thing that turns out later to be in violation, you can get hit really hard. People have been, so some of the things that have come up a lot for patent pending, probably the biggest one that people are aware of where patent pending has been discussed is wallets recently. I know there was a huge thread on Kydex Pro about patent pending wallets. There's been discussion of patent pending on different kinds of wedges and concealment kicks on Appendix holsters. I think Cry Havoc Gear tried to patent plastic. And I mean, some of it's in good humor, but really, patents are serious stuff, and violating a patent can be a big deal. You can get into a lawsuit. You can get dragged into months or years of litigation. It can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. But my approach, and the one that I would encourage you to take if you're a holster company, is to look very seriously at just open sourcing things. I'm doing a lot of Facebook Live broadcasts. That's my plan. I've got a bunch of stuff written up that I'm going to start broadcasting on. And my goal was to try to get all the information I can out there about this process. And Jefferson Brooks points out, and this is important, that if you falsely claim to have a patent pending, that's actually a legal problem. You can get fined for falsely claiming a patent pending. So personally, I don't advertise patent pending on anything. I don't patent my stuff. That doesn't mean that I'm involved in no patents at all, but my general approach is I would rather win in the market by selling a better product at a lower price with better customer service than win by sort of threatening my competition out of the game. And you all have encountered really low information customers. There are some holster customers that are not able to tell the difference between really good work, average work, and really lousy work. There's no way around that. We can't possibly educate every possible customer to understand great work and separate it from low caliber work. But also the market is huge. The Kydex holster market is enormous. There are so many companies making so many products, and there are so many customers, so many end users to reach, that we don't have to try to chase other people out of the market legally. If you have a great product and you have some marketing chops and you're willing to put in the work, you can make the sales. You can actually grow the brand. You can increase your market share. You can get new distributors. You can improve your margins by streamlining your process. You can win in business. I don't know of anybody in this industry who's become big and successful who has had a profitable, solid business by relying on patents to get them there. So why should I buy your holster over blank, Express? So, yeah, Nathan Gallup. Viral videos are great. You're sending that guy holster components with an Ulti-Clip and $1 refund for electricity is brilliant. It's good marketing. It actually educates consumers. It helps them understand what goes into the process of making a holster, why these holsters are not $22.95, because we've got a whole bunch of equipment, a whole bunch of material. Like, when I'm making holsters, I bought that thing. That's not a toaster oven. It's not cheap. I got a lot of equipment in here. This stuff is not free. I don't start a business and build a business and grow a business by selling things for, the barest possible minimum margin over what I make them for. But I also want to deliver a great design. So when it comes to bad blood and holding grudges in the industry, guys can get bent because they feel the intellectual property was stolen, because they just got in a fight on social media, they got in an argument about something with somebody. And what I keep telling myself is, I've got a limited amount of time. I have a limited amount of energy. My business is not going to be around forever. I'm not going to be around forever. Do I want to spend more time building great stuff, making customers happy, spending time in my shop and crushing it in here? Or do I want to spend time, chasing people around the interwebs and being a bad guy with no sense of humor and sending cease and desist? I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy. And so I'm committed to open sourcing. Now, that doesn't mean that nothing is proprietary, but it means I broadcast from my shop, and I'm not trying to censor and hide how I do my process, partly because a lot of people competing with me can't replicate it. Why buy a CNC when you can find somebody else who will? Spare yourself the trouble. Yeah, Tom, it goes both ways. Each business has to make the cost-benefit analysis on that on their own. For me, I wanted to have control of the process. I wanted to do design work and be able to control the design from the CAD model to the finished product and have complete access to every step of that process. In order to do that, I had to tool up the whole thing myself. If I just had a couple of holster designs and I wanted them produced in bulk, it would make more sense for me to outsource it. But I've already invested in this, and so other people outsource to me, and it works out well for both of us. Some do have a lack of respect when people borrow designs. And that's the flip side. It's good to have a thick skin, be a duck, let stuff run off your back. At the same time, if you're a holster maker and your work is inspired or influenced by other people, there are other designs that you look at and you go, wow, I want to incorporate that. Or you see something or talk to somebody and it changes the way you're doing something, give credit. Give the props. Let people know where the idea came from. There's very little in the holster field that's completely and totally original. I feel one can find a balance between the two paths, says Jefferson Brooks. But that's just a newbie talking. Yeah, there is a balance to find. It gets harder and harder to find the balance the more and more time and money you invest in your thing. Because oftentimes R&D is a big cost. You might spend months developing something. You finally think you've got it dialed, you launch it, and then somebody else goes and takes what they can see from your design, and they get to skip a bunch of steps. They stand on your shoulders and skip ahead. Make a good product and brand, market it effectively, and customers will be there. Todd May, I agree. But the flip side of, if you want respect from other people in the industry, give respect to other people in the industry. I don't say things about other people's holsters that I wouldn't say to their face about their holster designs. If I look at a holster and I think that it's poorly assembled, if I've got the holster maker in front of me, I'm going to tell him so. Not because I want to cut him down, but because I want to build his work up. I want him to get better. The better the market works, the more it pushes all of us. If I have other people who are really raising the bar on me all the time, every time I look at their social media feed, I'm seeing that they've raised the bar, that the quality has gone up, that the thoughtfulness and functionality of the design has gone up. It pushes me to be better. And I like that challenge. I like competing in that way. I need competition. If I had no competition, I'd be a lazy dog. I would not be putting out good work quickly, anywhere near the way that I am, if I didn't have competition pushing me, driving me. If there wasn't a bar out there being raised that I felt that every week that I come into the shop, I've got to do better than I did the week before. That the next design has got to be better than the one that came before. That in the future, the lead times need to go down. That in every way, I need to up the game across the board. It's hard to know what you're going to make next when you're not aware and honest about what inspired you and why. So yeah, this comes into the idea of a roadmap. All of us who have been making holsters for a while can look back at our products and look back at look at the growth of our business, and you can see the progression. Like for me, it was really obvious. I started doing fold-over taco holsters and did not do well with them. I mean, that was the very, very beginning. And very quickly, I moved into doing hybrids. And I found, because of some careful practice and also testing, that I was able to come up with some neat ideas, some innovations in the hybrid market. And I poured 3 years into developing really good hybrids, sourcing the right hardware, getting my leather edge dressing down, trying to cut the production times down. I really invested into that. And then from there, once I became convinced, because of training, because of the work of guys like Shea Van Vlyman, Craig Douglas, South Narc, who was here earlier, may still be here, because of those kinds of classes, I became convinced that appendix carry was the future for concealed carry. And so from the hybrid market, I pivoted, and I moved into appendix, and I started working very hard. I changed the way I was pressing. I changed a whole bunch of things. I started sourcing different hardware. I went hardcore into tracking down soft loops and buying them in bulk because I wanted to be able to get ahead of the game in that market. And so I've been in the appendix market for years now and have gradually refined my designs. I look back at appendix holsters I made in 2010, in 2011 versus now, and the difference is amazing. Hello, Gabriel Baker. I have flat out declined to copy the company's product when asked by customers that want it. I tell them that I stay in my lane and focus on my products. 9 out of 10 customers that I have. Yeah, you'll have customers just straight up send you a picture and say, this is from this other company, can you copy it for me for cheaper? And this is the get respect, give respect equation. I would hope that if one of you received a photo of my work and one of the customers said, hey, could you just copy this Henry Holster's rig for me? I hope that you would say no. I don't know if you would. I don't know all of you. But that's the get respect, give respect part. If somebody has a distinctive design and a customer asks you to just knock it off, I would say no. And I've said no many times to customers who come to me with very specific requests. This thing is from this other company. Their lead time is too long, or they don't offer the color that I want, or I want a different brand of hardware. I want this kind of clip versus that kind, which they don't offer. Can you copy their design and put the hardware I want on it? Nope. Sorry. I don't. And I hope that respect, that conscientiousness about protecting the work of others, that as I pay that forward, that I'll also get it back from everybody else. So, if you've recently joined the discussion, please like the video feed and share the video feed on your page. Invite a friend. Try to get a few more people here. I appreciate you spending your time with me this evening and giving me your attention. I'd love to have more people on the feed, asking questions, bringing their input and their experience to the discussion. And so now the big one, Raven Concealment Systems. So I know there are lots and lots of companies in the holster industry that have very strong opinions on Raven Concealment Systems. A lot of small companies that started pre-2010, pre-2011, in the Kydex field, Raven Concealment was the big fish and is still a big fish. And they do a lot of things well, but when the field was a lot smaller, it was much easier to get on their radar. Raven would notice you, and there are holster makers that had negative experiences because of direct competition head-to-head at gun shows, online, through distributors with RCS. I understand why some of those holster makers are still holding on to that, but I don't think it's good at this point. I think there's enough room. I think the industry has grown, that a lot of companies have brought a lot of innovation in different ways to the table, even beyond what Raven had. And so I think there's a lot of room for everybody in this field to do what they necessarily having to be concerned about what other companies think about them. Let me read some comments here for a second. Brent Fernandez is working on his Swift Press setup. Awesome. The worst these days are the sidecar style, says Michael Sedlacek. That's going to come up too. Hello, Tony Katner. John Hoffman says, I also turn those down. So, part of the reason why there are so many differences in the holster industry is because different holster makers have different ideas about what a holster should do. Not only how it should do it, but what it should do. And here I think there needs to be more room for respectful difference of opinion. And the sidecar holster is a good example. I don't make anything like it regularly. I used to occasionally do customs that had an integrated appendix holster and a magazine carrier, but I never did full Kydex shell. I always had a flexible connector so you could take the mag on or off. It was a little bit more modular, less monolithic. But one of the reasons why I don't do an integrated mag up front is that it's a priority decision for me. I'm convinced that people problem tools go up front. So that would be sidearm and a small fixed blade knife. Glock 19, TDI. Glock 17, clinch pick. And that spare mags, a spare mag is not what I'm going to need if I'm really, in a tangle, up close, clinched up, and I'm combative with somebody, the thing I need most is probably not a spare mag. I would likely not even have room to do work on my pistol and get that mag in there at that distance. And so I prefer to have gun and blade up front. And I suppose you could make an integrated gun and knife holster. I don't think it's that helpful.